Picture this. You're sitting at your own kitchen table. November evening. Nashville rain tapping the windows. Your wife walks in from her Wednesday dinner, the one she's been going to for 8 months now, sets her purse on the counter and doesn't sit down. She stands there, looks at you the way a manager looks at an underperforming employee. "Glenn," she says, "I think we need to talk about ending this." 36 years. That's what this was. I looked at her, set my coffee down, and said the only thing that made sense. "Then let's not drag this out." Her face changed. Not relief, not sadness, confusion. She didn't expect that. That was my kitchen, my wife, my 36 years. My name is Glenn Mercer. I'm 63 years old. I've been VP of Operations at Caldwell Logistics in Nashville for the last 14 years. Before that, I was in distribution management, loading docks, routes, warehouses. I built my career with my hands first and my mind second. Nothing was handed to me. Diane and I met in 1988. She was 23, working reception at a dental office on West End Avenue. I was 27, driving a delivery truck and taking night classes at Belmont. We got married in 1990. Small ceremony. Her parents' backyard in Brentwood. Her mother made the cake. I wore a borrowed suit that was a half size too big, and I didn't care because she was looking at me like I was the only person in the yard. For a long time, it was good. Not perfect, no marriage is, but real. Sunday mornings at Pancake Pantry with our son Marcus on my lap, syrup on his chin. Diane going back to school at 40 to get her MBA while I handled bedtimes and homework and burned dinners. I pretended we're edible. We were a team. That word meant something. She got hired at MedStar Health Systems when she was 46. By 55, she was running their Southeast Division, regional director. Corner office on Music Row. I remember the night she got the promotion. I bought a bottle of champagne we couldn't really justify, and we sat on the back porch listening to the crickets, and she said, "I couldn't have done this without you." I believed her. I had no reason not to. Marcus grew up, moved to Denver, got a job in software development. Good kid, solid. Calls every Sunday. I was proud of both of them. My wife climbing the ladder, my son building his own. I thought we were entering the easy years. The coast down. Travel, maybe. More time. Less pressure. Here's when things started to shift. About 2 years ago, spring of 2024, Diane joined what she called the Wednesday Group. 4 women. All successful. All in their late 50s, early 60s. They met every Wednesday evening at restaurants in the Gulch, Husk, Kane Prime, Josephine, rotating. Wine, conversation, networking, Diane called it. The leader was Sandra Voss, 62, twice divorced. Called herself a life transition coach. The kind of woman who says things like, "You're not living your full potential," while drinking $60 wine someone else paid for. I met Sandra once, at a birthday dinner for one of the group members at Merchants on Broadway. She shook my hand, looked me over and said, "So you're the famous Glenn." The way she said it, like I was a punchline she'd already heard. I smiled, didn't say anything, filed it. After that first Wednesday dinner, Diane came home different, not angry, not cold, just evaluating. Looking around the living room like she was seeing it with someone else's eyes. She picked up a photo of us from Destin, the one where we're both sunburned and laughing, looked at it for a long time, and put it back down without a word. By the 3rd month, the comments started. "You know, Glenn, most men your age are doing something with their lives, not just going to work and coming home." I looked up from the TV. "I run a $70 million supply chain, Diane. That's not what I mean." She never explained what she meant. The comments escalated, small cuts that accumulated. Sandra's first husband started a nonprofit after their divorce, found his purpose. My friend Carol's husband just ran a marathon. At 61, do you ever think about whether you're growing? I let it go. Every time. Because 36 years taught me that people have phases, seasons. I figured this was Diane's late life awakening. The career, the new friends, the energy. I thought it would settle. It didn't settle. It sharpened. Stay with me here, because this is where I started to see the pattern. September 2024, a Thursday night. Diane was on the phone in the bedroom, door cracked open. I was walking to the kitchen for water and heard my name. "Glenn's fine," she said. "He's just, comfortable, like old furniture you keep because it matches the room." A pause, then a laugh, not mean exactly, worse than mean, dismissive. "He wouldn't last a month without me." Sandra said the same thing. "These men, they fall apart. They don't know how to function alone. They just sit there." I stood in the hallway, glass in my hand. My chest did something I hadn't felt in years. Tight, not anger, something deeper. The feeling of being erased by someone you've loved for 36 years, reduced to furniture, in your own hallway, in your own house. I went back to the living room, sat down, didn't get the water. I didn't sleep that night, kept replaying what I heard. Old furniture, comfortable, he wouldn't last a month. Maybe she was venting. People say things to friends they don't mean. Maybe Sandra pushed her towards saying it. Maybe I was making too much of a phone call I wasn't supposed to hear. I almost convinced myself. Then Saturday happened. Marcus called from Denver. We talked about his job, his girlfriend Erin, the Titans' terrible season. Normal father-son stuff. Easy. Real. When I hung up, Diane was standing in the doorway of the living room. She'd been listening. "You know," she said, "Marcus only calls because he feels sorry for you." I looked at her. Really looked. And I saw it. The same expression Sandra had at Merchants. Like I was something to be studied, diagnosed, pitied. That's when I knew. This wasn't a phase. This wasn't stress or hormones or a rough patch. This was what she really thought. Maybe what she'd always thought, and finally found people who agreed with her. I sat in my truck in the garage for 30 minutes after she went upstairs. Hands on the steering wheel. Engine off. Door closed. Just sitting there thinking about 1990, the borrowed suit, the cake her mother made. How she looked at me when the preacher said, "Do you take this man?" And she said, "I do," before he finished the question. I didn't want to be in that truck. I wanted to be back there, but you can't drive backward, no matter how well you know the road. Monday morning, I called my friend Jim Halstead. Jim's an attorney, corporate, not family law, but he knows people. "I'm not saying I want a divorce," I told him. "I'm saying I want to know what one looks like." Jim was quiet for a long time. Then, "I'll get you a name by end of day." "Glenn, I'm sorry." "Don't be. I'm still figuring out what I'm sorry for." The lawyer was Angela Reyes. Office on West End, not far from where Diane used to work, reception 35 years ago. Sharp, direct. She didn't waste my time with sympathy or small talk. I liked that. "How long has this been going on?" she asked. The comments? "About 8 months. The distance? Longer. And before that, 34 good years. What changed?" "Her friends." Angela nodded like she'd heard this story 100 times. "The friend group shift. It's more common than people realize. One person plants the seed. The group waters it. By the time it blooms, your wife is someone you don't recognize." She told me to document. Not spy. Document. Save text where tone shifted. Note dates when behavior changed. Keep a quiet record. Not for court, for clarity. For when the fog of 36 years tries to convince you that maybe you're the problem. The next 6 weeks were the strangest of my life. I knew something Diane didn't know I knew, and I watched. Monday, she came home from work, kissed my cheek, asked about dinner. Normal. Like Thursday's phone call never happened. I made pasta. She ate half and checked her phone 14 times. I counted. Wednesday, another dinner with the group. Came home at 11. Didn't speak. Went straight to the bathroom. I heard her on the phone through the door. Muffled but clear enough, he's still doing the same things. It's like talking to a wall. Thursday, nothing. Complete silence. Not hostile silence. Indifferent silence. The kind where two people share a house and a bed and absolutely nothing else. Friday, she was sweet. Made her brisket. The recipe from her grandmother, the one she only makes when she wants something to feel normal. Poured me a beer without asking. "Should we go to the Bluebird this weekend, like old times?" I said sure. We went. She spent the first set on her phone. During the second set, she leaned over and said, "This is nice." Same voice you'd use for, "The weather's fine." You know that feeling when someone goes through the motions of loving you? The words are right. The actions look right from the outside. But there's nothing behind them. It's like watching someone do an impression of your wife, close enough to confuse you, empty enough to break your heart. The following week, I came home and found a self-help book on the kitchen counter. When Love Isn't Enough, Finding Your Next Chapter. A post-it note inside the cover. Sandra recommends. Life-changing. I picked it up, read the post-it, put it back down. "What did you think?" Diane asked that evening. "I think Sandra's had 2 chapters already and neither one stuck." Her face went flat. "That's exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about, Glenn. You're dismissive. You don't take anything seriously. I take our marriage seriously, which is why I'm still sitting here. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe just sitting here isn't enough." Imagine hearing that from someone you've woken up next to for 13,000 mornings. Sitting here, Like showing up every day for 36 years was a character flaw. 2 weeks later, October, the Wednesday group planned a retreat weekend in Gatlinburg. 3 days, spa, wine tastings, workshops. Diane packed like she was going to Europe. 3 outfits for every day, shoes I'd never seen before. You'll be fine, right? She said at the door, not a question. A confirmation of what she'd already decided about me. I've been fine for 63 years, Diane. She left, and I sat in our quiet house and felt something I hadn't expected. Not loneliness, relief. The absence of being measured, evaluated, found wanting. It was like setting down a weight I didn't realize I'd been carrying for 2 years. That weekend, I called Marcus. Dad. He heard it in my voice immediately. You don't sound right. Your mother wants to end things. She hasn't said it directly yet, but it's coming. Silence. Then, I know. You know, she called me 2 weeks ago, said she's been evolving and she's not sure you're evolving with her. I told her that was a strange thing to say about a man who rebuilt his career twice and put her through business school. What did she say? She said, "You sound just like your father." Like it was an insult. My throat closed. I pressed my hand against the kitchen counter and stood there until I could breathe again. Thanks for telling me, son. Dad, whatever happens, I'm with you. You know that. I know. When Diane came home from Gatlinburg, something had changed in her. Not softer, harder, like she'd been given permission. Like Sandra and the group had signed off on whatever she was about to do. She unpacked without speaking to me, put on yoga pants and sat on the couch with her laptop. I could hear the typing from the kitchen, fast, purposeful. The following Tuesday. November. That's when it happened. The kitchen, the rain, the purse on the counter. Glenn, I think we need to talk about ending this. And I said it. Not because I was brave, not because I had a plan, because I was tired, because somewhere between old furniture and he wouldn't last a month, I'd already grieved this marriage in private. I'd already sat in trucks and hallways and quiet rooms and accepted that the woman I married had been replaced by someone who thought surviving me was an achievement. Then let's not drag this out. She blinked. What? You heard me. If you want to end 36 years, I'm not going to beg you to stay. I've never begged anyone for anything. I'm not starting at 63. I didn't say I'd decided. Diane, I heard you on the phone in September, old furniture. He wouldn't last a month. I've had 3 months to sit with those words. So when you say, let's talk about it, I already have. Plenty. The color left her face. You heard that? Every word. Glenn, that was just, I was frustrated. I didn't mean. You laughed. While you said it, you laughed. While you said it, you laughed. Silence. The kind that has weight. The kind you feel behind your eyes and in your ribs and in the space between two people who used to be one. Then came the cycle. I watched it happen in real time. Anger first. Her eyes narrowed and her voice dropped. Fine. If that's how you want to handle this, I'm not the one who called this a throwaway. Bargaining. Her voice shifted, softer, almost sweet. Maybe I was wrong to say those things. Maybe we should try counseling. Counseling requires two people who respect each other. When's the last time you respected me, Diane? Not appreciated, not tolerated, respected. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. That's not fair. Neither is old furniture. But here we are. She went to the bedroom. I heard her on the phone, whispering, urgent. Sandra. Had to be. 20 minutes later she came back. Calmer, eyes dry, rehearsed. Sandra says the calm response is a control tactic. Sandra has been divorced twice, Diane. She coached Carol Pruitt into leaving Phil, 28 years, gone. She told Janet Vickers the same thing she's been telling you. Janet's already divorced, 3 marriages. One common factor. And you're standing in my kitchen quoting her like gospel. She stared at me. How do you know about Carol and Janet? Because people talk. The ones who aren't in Sandra's circle, they see the pattern. Amy Kitchens called me. She told me what you've been saying about me, to mutual friends, to people at work, that I'm controlling, that I held you back. That the marriage has been dead for years. Her hands were shaking now. Amy watched her friend disappear into a group that destroys marriages and couldn't stay quiet anymore. That's not betrayal, Diane. That's loyalty, something Sandra doesn't understand because she's never had anyone loyal enough to confront her. Her face did something I'll never forget. It went from defiant to confused to frightened in about 3 seconds. The mask didn't crack. It fell off. And underneath was a 61-year-old woman who suddenly realized she might have been wrong about everything she'd been so certain about for 2 years. That's not. Sandra is my friend. Helping you grow into what? Into her? 2 divorces, no family that calls on Sundays, charging women $200 an hour to feel empowered while their marriages burn? Is that the next chapter, Diane? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like the last one. Tears. Real ones. Not the kind meant to redirect a conversation, the kind that come from somewhere deep and ugly and true. She sat at the table and put her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook. I sat across from her, didn't reach out, not because I was cruel, because reaching out would have been a lie. And I was done with lies, hers and the ones I'd been telling myself about us still being fixable. Why didn't you say something? She whispered through her fingers. When you heard the phone call. Why didn't you just talk to me? Because you would have denied it, called me insecure, then been more careful next time. I didn't want to teach you to hide better, Diane. I wanted to see who you really are when you think nobody's watching. This isn't who I really am. Then who's been living in this house for the last 2 years? She didn't answer. The rain kept tapping the windows. The coffee I'd set down when she walked in was cold. Here's the part I didn't tell anyone for a long time. After she went to the guest room that night, I sat in the kitchen alone. Same chair, same table. The house was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming and the rain and my own breathing, and I cried. Not loud, not dramatic. The kind of crying where your chest shakes and your jaw aches from clenching, and you're grateful nobody can see you because you're 63 years old and you're supposed to be past this. I cried for the woman who said, "I do," before the preacher finished asking. For the backyard wedding and the borrowed suit and the destined photo and 13,000 mornings that apparently weren't enough. I cried for about 10 minutes. Then I washed my face, turned off the kitchen light, and went to my room. That was November. Angela handled the filing. Clean, professional, no theatrics. Diane hired her own attorney, a man Sandra recommended naturally, but she didn't contest anything meaningful. I think the fight went out of her when she realized the script Sandra gave her didn't include this ending. The script said he'd beg, he'd panic, he'd prove every weak thing she'd been told about men who need their wives. The script didn't say he'd sit there calmly and open the door. Amy told me later that Sandra's Wednesday group collapsed within 2 months. Carol pulled out first. Then Janet confronted Sandra at a restaurant on 2nd Avenue, loud enough that other tables heard. By January, Sandra was posting motivational quotes to strangers on the internet instead of coaching real women into loneliness. I moved into a condo in Germantown, small, clean, hardwood floors, a balcony facing the Cumberland River. The first morning, I made coffee and stood by the window. January cold. The kind that clears your head whether you want it or not. Marcus flew in for a weekend. We ate barbecue at Martin's and talked about everything except his mother until the second beer. You seem different, Dad. I'm the same, just lighter. April, Kroger on White Bridge Road, coffee aisle. She was in produce. She saw me first. Glenn. Diane. She looked tired. Not beaten, just tired. The way people look when they've been running and finally stopped. Your friends were right about you, she said quietly. I should have listened to the ones who actually knew us, instead of the ones who told me what I wanted to hear. I nodded. Didn't say anything. Sometimes a nod is enough. Do you ever miss it, every day? But I don't miss who we became. I miss who we were. And those people aren't here anymore. She looked at me for a long moment, then she nodded and walked away. I paid for my coffee, walked to my car, sat there for a minute with the engine off. Old habit, her friend said I wouldn't survive. I'm still here, making my own coffee, watching the river from a window I chose, calling my son on Sundays. Sleeping through the night for the first time in 2 years. Surviving wasn't the hard part. Missing who she used to be, that's the thing that stays. Some people will tell you they know what's best for your marriage. They don't. They know what makes them feel less alone about their own choices. And if you're not careful, their loneliness becomes your life. You teach people how to treat you by what you're willing to accept. I stopped accepting comfortable as a synonym for disposable. Dear listeners, that's our ending. If it resonated, subscribe to support the channel. See you next time.